I was standing in my kitchen, halfway through my morning coffee, wearing pajamas with little cartoon clouds on them, when my front door flew open so hard it rattled the hinges. And there she was, Janice Larch, in all her glory, HOA clipboard clutched to her chest like it was a declaration of war, eyes shining with that unmistakable, "I'm about to ruin your week" sparkle. She didn't even pause for breath, just marched right in and announced, with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no, that, as of this morning, my guest room 2B was now under the jurisdiction of the Homeowners Association. Like I was supposed to thank her. I just stared at her, coffee mug hanging midair, trying to decide if this was still a dream or if my life had officially become some kind of sitcom. But Janice, bless her soul, just kept going. Out came the tape measure, and before I could even blink, she was measuring my doorways, muttering something about community hosting zones. I tried to protest, but she cut me off with a little smirk, said I could keep my kitchen and bathroom, how generous, right? But the other 2 bedrooms were now optional guest suites for community use. Optional, according to Janice, is code for sign here or else. You know what I mean? Let me back up a sec, because if you told me 2 years ago that moving into Lilac Pond Estates would turn into a full-blown HOA soap opera, I'd have laughed in your face. I'm Ronald Trawick, semi-retired meteorologist, and yeah, that probably explains the weather pajamas, and all I wanted was a little peace, a little quiet, a home where my only drama was which bird feeder to buy. Lilac Pond looked perfect at first. Sure, the lavender mailboxes were a little much, and the monthly potlucks felt like forced fun, but it was quiet, safe, and nobody bothered me. I mowed my lawn to regulation height, kept my nose out of HOA business, even tolerated the endless parades of gnomes and scarecrows on every front porch. My house was my sanctuary. 3 bedrooms, 1 for sleeping, 1 for my weather gear and consulting, 1 just in case I ever made a friend brave enough to visit. And it worked right up until the day Janice Larch became president. You ever meet someone who's just a little too enthusiastic about rules? That's Janice. Ex-improv teacher, thinks HOA is her stage. First, she tried mandatory cul-de-sac yoga. Then, a shared compost bin plan that mostly resulted in raccoons getting fat. But Project Room Share? That was her masterpiece. And nobody saw it coming except maybe Mrs. Chan next door, who'd been whispering about secret meetings I never got invites to. So the next morning, there's an official notice on my door, Comic Sans headline and everything. You are hereby requested to open rooms 2A and 2B for community access. There were threats of fines, even potential eviction for failure to support community harmony. Harmony, that's a good one. I did what any sane person would do, ignored it, and hoped it would go away. 3 days later, I roll back from the grocery store and nearly run over Janice, who's standing in my driveway with a folding cot, a lava lamp, and a guy in a hemp poncho carrying, I kid you not, a didgeridoo. "This is Stuart," Janice beamed. "He's between homes, but spiritually abundant. He'll be utilizing your community hosting zone immediately." Before I could even form words, Stuart and his lava lamp were in my house, trailing patchouli oil and vibes I wasn't equipped to handle before my second cup of coffee. I tried to draw the line, called it trespassing, tried to keep my voice steady, but Janice just whipped out her clipboard again. "Failure to participate in resource sharing is a breach of the Neighborhood Harmony Clause," she intoned, as if she was reading me my Miranda rights. "Stuart is our first participant in the Transitional Housing Program. Transitional housing in my house. That's a new one." It didn't stop there. Suddenly, there's an $800 fine for emotional hostility toward a transitional resident. Stuart wandered around in my slippers, the nice ones my sister sent for Christmas, asking if he could use my shampoo. Every morning, I'd hear the lava lamp gurgling and catch the scent of what can only be described as burnt sage and tires. And Stuart multiplied. 2 days later, there was Bev, middle-aged, wild hair, insisted she was a life coach and tarot reader. She moved right into my office, draped my weather maps with dream catchers and crystals, lecturing me about how the jet stream over Nevada is calling you to embrace change. I tried everything, changed the locks, but Janice had already handed out copies. I called the cops, but Janice filed preemptive paperwork. The responding officer glanced at the stack of HOA documents, gave me a sympathetic look, and suggested I get a lawyer. The lawyer, $3,000 just to read the HOA packet, nearly fell out of his chair laughing. So, in a fit of desperation, I started hauling Stuart's stuff out to the curb, hoping maybe he'd get the hint. That's when Janice showed up with, you guessed it, an actual camera crew. Unauthorized handling of transitional residence property, she chirped, adding another $1,600 to my growing list of violations. We're up to $2,400, Ronald. Don't make it worse. I stood there, lava lamp in hand, seriously considering my life choices. Janice launched into a lecture about how private rooms are a luxury this community can't afford, and your outdated sense of property is the problem here. She pointed out my lawn was a shade too long, another violation, apparently. At this point, I was half convinced I'd wandered into some kind of dystopian reality show. So I filed for eviction through the courts, hoping sanity would prevail. Instead, Janice reported me to the county for operating an illegal rental. Because, if you're evicting someone, you must be their landlord. Enter Tom, the county inspector, who showed up with a clipboard of his own and the energy of a man just trying to make it to lunch. As he toured my house, Stuart offered him kombucha. Bev tried to read his palm, and I just stood there watching my life unravel. But then Tom started asking real questions. He dug into Janice's paperwork, all of it, and found a lot more than anyone expected. She's filed 17 complaints this month alone, he muttered, flipping through her records. And there are rezoning forms, federal grant applications. What is this? Turns out, Janice had listed my house as a designated community lodge on a federal housing grant application. $75,000, my address right there, tied to a so-called housing initiative that didn't legally exist. You could feel the mood shift. Tom's eyes narrowed, and suddenly, it wasn't just about me. Within 48 hours, Lilac Pond was swarming with investigators, county, state, even a few sharp-looking folks in dark suits who never quite said where they were from. They dug up everything. Turns out, Janice had been running multiple grant scams, applying for funding under fake organizations, J.M. Larch Enterprises, Janessa Larchington, you name it, supposedly for community improvements. But the receipts told another story. Hot tubs, a vacation to Cabo, and a weirdly huge ceramic frog collection. Then there were cameras, tiny ones, hidden in smoke detectors around my house. HOA monitoring, she claimed, but the state called it invasion of privacy, among other things. As for Stuart, turns out he wasn't just spiritually abundant. He was Janice's nephew with a rap sheet for charity fraud. Bev, real name Margaret, tarot reading out of her Mazda to dodge taxes. Met Janice in some Facebook group for entrepreneurial spirits. My house had become ground zero for the world's most chaotic grift. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, kicked Janice out in under 15 minutes. Even she voted for her own removal, probably thought it was another performance art moment. The state saw things differently. Fraud, grant abuse, invasion of privacy, you name it. The prosecutor handed Janice a plea deal: plead guilty, pay restitution, skip jail, or roll the dice in court and risk 15 years. Janice, always the pragmatist, took the deal. But here's the punchline. $135,000 in fines and fees, house foreclosed, sold at auction to pay it all back. I showed up, just for fun, with $27 and a prosperity-blessed tarot card. Bev left behind. Only bitter. I turned her old master bedroom into a home theater, called it the Larch Pit, and screened a documentary about HOA horror stories for the whole neighborhood, even invited Stuart. But he had to stay outside. And just when I thought the show was over, at her sentencing, Janice stood up and declared herself a sovereign citizen of Lilac Pond Estates. Said the court had no authority over her. The judge just stared, then tacked another $5,000 onto her fines for contempt. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out, just a silent, fish-like gasp. So yeah, that happened. Sometimes the universe delivers the ending you didn't even know you needed. I got my house back, my privacy, and one heck of a story for every future potluck. But you tell me, where's the line between community and control? Is there such a thing as a good HOA? Or are they all just one visionary away from disaster? Drop your thoughts, your stories, your wildest HOA horror tales in the comments because trust me, you can't make this stuff up.